Hello and welcome to this how-to guide from Quantique. What we're going to do in this video is show you how to connect an ESP32 to the cloud, and we're going to do it in 10 minutes. Let's start by having a look at a typical IoT architecture. So over here on the left you can see your IoT device that you're about to make. It will typically connect to some kind of wireless gateway through a router and connect to cloud service providers such as AWS, Microsoft Azure. You may even want to connect to a database or simply an MQTT Broker. So what would this look like with QuarkLink? So QuarkLink also sits in the cloud, you can see it here, but it is responsible for your updating and your security of your IoT device, basically the lifecycle management. So it would manage the secure provisioning of software into the device, the connection to the Wi-Fi network, the onboarding to the cloud service, and then the security management such as certificate revocation and renewal throughout the lifetime of the product. Let's now have a quick look at your IoT device journey. So firstly, you'll be selecting a microcontroller which you'll want to provision securely with firmware. You'll want to fit that microcontroller inside some kind of controller board in your product, which will then be onboarded to the cloud and allow that device to communicate with its IoT application that's running in the cloud. Here you can see how the QuarkLink manages all those items throughout the journey. Creation of the root of trust in the MCU, secure provisioning and programming of that device, and then the secure onboarding of that device to the cloud, and the continuing certificate and device management throughout its lifecycle. Let's show you how it's done. First of all, let's navigate to Quantique's GitHub. Here we are. Let's have a look at what devices are supported. Scroll down here, I've got ESP32 and the M5 edu kit. More to follow. Let's go to the ESP32. Here in the repository you can see all the source code for building an ESP32 device. If we go down here you can see that in the readmes I will need to import the QuarkLink library. Okay, let's download the code so I can build my project. I've unzipped the file in a directory and loaded it into my IDE. Here you can see I've included the library as stated in the README, and now I've opened my main.c, and this is where I'm going to add my application software for my particular target IoT device. And when we're done, I'm going to build. Next thing I need is my own QuarkLink instance. I go to QuarkLink.io and sign up for free. Enter my email address, check I'm not a robot, and sign up. I check my email and find my QuarkLink instance. I've now logged into my brand new QuarkLink instance. It takes me straight to the dashboard, but I want to load some new firmware. Hit the firmware tab. You can see there's some preloaded getting started firmware here if you want to program a device directly. But I want to add some new firmware. So let's click on add firmware, and what I'm going to do now is find where my firmware is that I've just built in my project. Here it is here. Let's find out where it is. It's here in my cool IoT device. I'm going to now drag and drop that into the QuarkLink. Here we go. I'm going to load it up and I'm going to call it my new code and save. My new firmware is now available for me to download to my device and pre-provision. Let's go back to the dashboard. Next, I need to configure the QuarkLink to tell it what cloud service provider to connect to, or what hub. Click Hubs. Here is the default one, which is a MQTT local broker to the QuarkLink, but I may want to connect to others. Options that I have available are AWS, Azure, Azure IoT Central, or as the default is the MQTT Broker. I can select any of these, but today I'm just going to use the local broker. Next, we need to create a security policy. I will click on the Policies tab and create a new policy. This is my policy name, and the type of connection is that I'm going to connect this policy with IoT hubs. and I'm going to connect it to the example IoT hub that was preloaded into this QuarkLink instance. Here the policy simply defines the device certificate validity dates and the issuing certificate validity dates. You'll also notice that I've configured it for auto-renew, so these certificates will be auto-renewed once they expire. Now I can save my policy. Before we can start provisioning our devices, I first need to create a batch. This is done under the Devices tab. A batch of devices represents a group of devices that are to be connected to this instance of QuarkLink that have the same security policy. So let's create our batch. I'll give it a name. The policy is the one I just recently created. The firmware is what I uploaded. And we need a signing key to sign the software prior to it being downloaded to the device. So I need to create a key. I'm going to call it my cool IoT device key. The type is going to be RSA, and I need to save my key. Now I'm ready to save my batch. Let's return to the dashboard. Let's now configure the QuarkLink in readiness for provisioning multiple devices. Let's go to provisioning. I want to create a new provisioning task. I shall give it a name for my cool device. The device is a ESP-32. I'll select a default bootloader, and I will select the IEF default firmware. The batch that I want the device ID to be copied into is my cool IoT device batch. I'll save my provisioning task, and it's ready to be provisioned. Let's go ahead. Click provisioning task. I'm going to now type in the Wi-Fi information that the device will use for configuring and contacting the QuarkLink. I will now connect to the device. It's already connected over USB, and the provisioning of the device will begin. The device has now been provisioned, and this is the unique device identity of the device that has been extracted from it. Let's close the provisioning. My device is now ready to onboard to the QuarkLink. Now let's just check to see whether the device actually enrolled onto the QuarkLink. Here is the batch of my cool IoT device. Let's have a look inside. Yes, there is our device, and you can see the certificates that were sent to the device when it enrolled. Now that we know that the device has successfully enrolled onto the QuarkLink and would have been sent the security credentials to connect to its hub, we can check whether it's transmitting successfully. We can do this by going to IoT Hubs, selecting the hub that was in the policy, and displaying the MQTT data. You can see here the actual device transmitting messages to the hub of choice. Let's close the display and return to the dashboard. Now that we know that the device is operating normally, it's enrolled onto the QuarkLink and has also been connected to the MQTT Broker in the policy, we want to do a firmware over-the-air update. Let me show you how you do that. First, I need to access the batch. Click on Devices, and I'll access my batch. Here I'm going to edit the settings, and I'm going to change the firmware to this pre-loaded version. Select the correct key, and also I can schedule when that update will occur. Let's schedule it for next month. Save. The device will now be updated when it next checks for a status. In this video, I've shown you how the QuarkLink can be used to secure your bare metal microcontroller and instantiate a root of trust. You can see how it's been securely provisioned over the USB and also how firmware over-the-air updates operate. You can see how the QuarkLink has connected the device to the cloud and how it's transmitting data to the cloud. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. Please visit the Crypto Quantique YouTube channel for more helpful guides.